Okay, welcome. So today is our Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting. And it's nice to have you here. So what is the intention of this meeting? The intention is that you can relax and without having to try so hard, you can allow yourself to discover something beyond your habitual sense of yourself, the habitual limitations of yourself. So your main job, should you choose to accept it, really is to relax. And my job also is to relax, but also I'm to point and suggest some ways of looking, some ways of seeing that can allow you to, as I've said, to see beyond the limitations that you've up to now habitually accepted as the way it is. And the benefits I would hope would be somewhat obvious, but I'll try to. It's possible that they may not be, and so I'll elaborate on that a little bit. Because really, I think that oftentimes we don't really understand. Well, in fact, I would say we simply we can't understand, and so we don't even approach comprehension of how important it is, or how necessary it is for our wellness at all levels, and indeed for the collective wellness, for wellness as it with a capital W, wellness, that we do allow ourselves uh, to see beyond these limitations. And it's precisely because we're blind that we don't understand how important it is. And unfortunately, that creates a kind of vicious cycle in which we overlook and trivialize and dismiss and ignore something that could be, well, not could be, that necessarily is of profound importance at all levels. And so we're most of the time in our day-to-day activities, we are very focused on a lot of what we could call minutia that is based upon assumptions. These assumptions are the very assumptions that I'm referring to, the limitations that we accept as set in stone, as an independently existent reality that we are subservient to, or that we are um, victims of. And so I often say that this is just sort of like the postmodern view that we all are saturated in, is that we are all alone in a hostile universe. And this view, whether you're conscious of it or not, is coloring everything that you do. So, as I say, your job is, should you choose to accept it, at least is to relax. And I hope that you'll accept that, because otherwise I don't know why you would be here. Well, how can you relax? First of all, we'll get to the rest of it momentarily, but first of all, how can you relax? Because that's an important thing that we don't really often understand. We don't have much information about, and certainly the culture in general doesn't teach us. I mean, in school, I never was taught how to relax. That was, I don't know if you were, but it certainly was not part of my education in formal education. I was taught how to uh, raise my hand before speaking. I was taught to, do mathematics and to read and write. I was taught to follow the rules. I was taught all of these things, but I was not taught how to relax. Well, that and many other things that, as I'm sure you've also realized, are um, really important things, like how to understand oneself, how to understand the world, how to get along with others, how to live a good life. It's like kind of the most important things are the things that are not taught. But among them, we're not taught how to relax. So we may be given the instruction to relax, but often what you might notice is that if somebody says relax, not only do you not relax, but in fact, maybe you even get more uptight, because as soon as somebody suggests that you might relax, it does two things. One is, of course, it provokes these, what I will refer to as latent tendencies, the conditioning that's in the system, however you want to understand it. And so we automatically, unconsciously react to that. So that reaction is an agitation. So right away, we're not as relaxed. But also because when it's suggested that we might relax, we reflexively noticed that we're not relaxed. Now, prior to the suggestion that you might relax, you might have already kind of noticed an underlying discomfort, unease, but it's not as acutely present to you as it is once you are aware of that discomfort consciously. Once you reflexively look and see, oh, I don't feel well. I don't know how to relax. I don't know where the ground is even. I mean, we know, of course, intellectually where the ground is, but we don't know how to access it. We don't know how to touch it. We don't know how to surrender to it. We don't know how to receive it or be received. And just notice how uh, how central that is to everything in your life. Because if you actually were relaxed, just imagine for a moment if you were relaxed all the time. Now, that may be a fantasy, but just as a thought experiment, just imagine that for a moment. And imagine if you were relaxed all the time, what would be your problem? Really? Now, okay, but let's be clear, because of course I haven't even shed any light on how to relax yet. So you maybe say, well, that sounds great, but I can't just lie in bed all day long, because maybe we think in order to relax, I have to just be immobilized, maybe involving some kind of narcotics, something to numb all of the habitual struggle. So let me elaborate a little bit more on some instruction or some direction on how to relax. Because the relaxation that I'm talking about is not a relaxation that involves immobilization or numbing. I should say also, however, and this is an important point, neither does it exclude those things. Because notice, for most of us, anybody certainly who is part of a culture that has a Christian tradition, particularly in the Western Christian tradition, particularly a puritanical Christian tradition, which is the United States, particularly, perhaps other places, then we think very, very right away, we think in terms of good and bad. We're looking for what the right thing and staying away from the wrong thing. And so if I say, which I have, that relaxation does not require that you're numb and immobilized, then you might think that means that numbness or immobilization is somehow problematic or bad, that would interfere with relaxation or somehow be a hindrance. And I want to be clear, that's not true either. So I want you to just start to see, and this is central to actual relaxation, really, is to start to notice that tension, that tension that's there between all of these opposites all the time. We don't notice it most of the time. And consciously we don't notice it, but you can consciously notice it. You can notice how you can't seem to ever quite let go because you're always wrestling with this, trying to figure it out, trying to, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is desirable, what is undesirable, what is pleasurable, what is painful, what should I do and what shouldn't I do. All that's always churning. It's a struggle. So the deeper true relaxation that I'm pointing to here is not a relaxation that seeks to get to do away with any of those things. It's not to do battle with any of those things. It's not to overcome them. It's not to destroy them. It's not any of those sorts of things. It's not to in any of that. It's not a reaction to that. Rather, it's we could say deeper than that. So there is a possibility of just noticing that actually already there is present this deeper relaxation. So in fact, this relaxation that I'm talking about is not something that you do as much as it is something that is already present and you can simply uncover it. That might seem strange, puzzling, maybe even impossible. I understand some of the things I'm saying are challenging, but they're useful. It's okay to be challenged. The challenge does not interfere with the relaxation. In fact, the challenge and even the struggle, even the problems, the difficulty, the suffering, even all of that, this might seem dangerous what I'm about to say, but all of that actually, in a way, clarifies and enhances the relaxation that I'm talking about. Now, I say it's dangerous because I don't want you to misunderstand and think that what I'm suggesting to you is that you should strive for more struggle and more strain and more difficulty and more unpleasantness in your life. But I am saying that there is a possibility of having a completely new relationship with all of that in which it can genuinely open you to this deeper relaxation. So I'm saying deeper, we could say transcendent, we could say integrated, we could say unified, we could say so many different things. And none of them are exactly right. So just take it all lightly and see what's being pointed to rather than trying to figure out how, what the architecture of reality is. So this deeper relaxation that I'm really inviting you to is, as I say, it's something that's already present. It's already here. And so this is important because otherwise what we will do, we can't help but do it, is we'll try and figure out how to relax. We'll try to do it. We'll try to get it right. And when we do that, of course, we're increasing the struggle rather than actually finding what is we could say prior to or inclusive of the struggle. What is that greater context of this relaxation? Now, with all that said, that doesn't mean that, see, because that kind of makes it just seem like too vague. How do you now, if at first you were confused about relaxation, now maybe you're really confused about relaxation because before maybe you kind of had some idea and now I've obliterated the idea and you're kind of in maybe in this no man's land, deep space. You don't know which way is up, which way is down, what is relaxation, what's not relaxation, what do I do? this is all nonsense. And so, there can be that kind of reaction, but just do your best to stay with it and just see that there are some practical avenues that we can take in this exploration. So one is through a somatic exploration. So when I say somatic, I'm referring to, just to keep it simple, we'll say the felt sense. Now, this is a really interesting exploration because um, this is what ties together so many of these otherwise um, mm, let's say incoherent parts and makes them seem like a whole. So the in a very, I would say in a very real sense, the somatic experience is what gives a sense of reality to our experience. Because without it, you just have thoughts, images, impressions, but there's nothing that lends a sense of reality to it. It's all just sort of vague abstractions. In other words, if you have a thought that says, the boogeyman's going to get me, but there's no feeling associated with it, then it doesn't have any real sense of reality to it. But if you have the thought, the boogeyman's going to get me, and you simultaneously have a feeling that you interpret as being a feeling of uh, vulnerability or insecurity or fear, well, then all of a sudden you seem to have a problem. Seem to, and that's why I'm saying the somatic experience is really central. And so you can notice that there is a somatic experience. So you're feeling, and the feeling, now all this happens really fast normally, so you don't see it so easily, but we can slow it down and kind of start to see this in more clarity. So you can notice that there's feeling, sensation, there's awareness of that, and there's an interpretive layer that comes right along with it that says that feeling is uh, the feeling of just to give an example, let's say that's a feeling of discomfort in my left knee. Okay, so that's the interpretive thought layer that is concurrent or co-arising with the somatic experience. But the somatic experience itself, just the pure somatic experience, if we could imagine such a thing, and I'm inviting you to notice it in your experience. So just look now and see that when you really slow things down, you can see that the thought and the somatic experience are in some sense distinct. I say in some sense because in another way, there's no distinction to be made at all between any uh, modes of experiencing. But here, just for the sake of exploration, we're making the distinction, and you can hopefully see it. So what I'm saying is that you notice there's the raw sensation, the raw feeling, and perhaps you can start to tune into that and notice that. And then there's also the thought, the interpretation that suggests a meaning of the somatic experience. Well, this is where most of us are kept in bondage most of the time, most of our days. We don't know it, but we can know it. I'm pointing it out to you so you can see it. So and by the way, don't expect some kind of like anything, because oftentimes we have certain expectations about what's needed, what outcome is required in order for this to be a success, how we'll know when it's worked, which I should put in air quotes, when how do we know when the inquiry has worked? How do I know when I've adequately relaxed into health, wealth, and happiness? What is the measure of success? And we have some expectations, whether they're clearly defined or not, and that can interfere with the process. So if you want the best results, then just you can't completely get rid of the expectations, but you can just start to be aware of them and hold them more lightly. Notice when you start to uh, experience what you would perceive as frustration or boredom or irritation or impatience or any of those sorts of things. And just know that that's because you have an expectation, and the expectation is interfering with the process of relaxing into health, wealth, and happiness. I mean, I hope you can see how it's such a simple thing and yet has profound implications. I mean, that one point right there could absolutely, that just that one thing, that one insight, if you really let that take hold of you completely, and you don't lose it, you don't dismiss it, you don't betray it, if you really stay true to it, that one insight could be all that you need, really, to truly live a liberated life. Just that one insight, to see that your expectations, well, rather, let's back up, just to see that whenever you're having what you would perceive as a problem of some kind, as those that I've mentioned, frustration, impatience, irritability, and so forth, that really what's going on, and I'll tie this back into the theme that we're exploring of somatic experience in just a moment, but really what's going on is that you have an expectation and you're clinging to the expectation, even though your actual experience is pointing you to something different, but you're refusing to see it. And so when you have the expectation and the expectation is not a match with your experience, and you refuse to be flexible, when you refuse to flow, when you refuse to actually be present and honest, then you experience as a consequence these interpretations of frustration, impatience, irritability, anger, uh, depression, and so forth. Okay, so now how does that tie in with this discussion of the somatic experience? And notice that whatever those experiences are that are interpreted as those things that I keep listing off, the impatience and so forth, notice that that too is actually a somatic experience that does not have an inherent meaning, but it's a habitual narrative that assigns it a meaning, and you just believe it. Now it becomes very circular, and I understand the difficulty of this circuity, I suppose would be the better way of saying that, um, because we don't seem to know how to get out of it. And so we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, we just want to see how it works. So see that there's the, I don't necessarily want to say first. Let's just say there is a somatic experience. There's some sensation, some feeling, some sense, and that doesn't actually have any inherent meaning. We could say actually it's just energy. So just take a look and see, can you notice that? Can you notice that whatever in its purest sense, the somatic experience or the sensation is really just energy. Sometimes for some of you that will be easy to see. For some of you that will be very challenging to see. The difference between it being easy to see and challenging to see has an awful lot to do with your belief and expectation. So round and round we go. We can see keeps on, same basic process is playing out over and over and over. And when it's happening with great rapidity and volume, and so many of these vicious cycles going at the same time, then we perceive there's a great amount of suffering. When there is a relative silence of all of that, slowness, calmness, then we say, oh, that's better. But nonetheless, you just slow down, you can see, I hope, that the pure somatic experience really, we could say, is energy. It's really kind of actually formless, or if it has a form, we could say its form is very subtle, and it doesn't have the meaning that we habitually associate with it. So we associate all kinds of meanings. We say, this particular one is orgasmic, and this particular one is physical pain, and this particular one is depression, and this particular one is irritability, and this particular one is happiness, and so forth and so on. So we want to see, though, that, and furthermore, that it doesn't even actually have a location. So the location is another overlay. It's another interpretation, another narrative. Now, don't try really hard. I mean, don't try at all, but definitely don't try really hard to force yourself to see that or to understand that. Just take all of this very lightly. Because the harder you try, it's like the further you push away the clarity. So you have to be very gentle with it, very light, patient, curious. Now, so we can see, hopefully, that the somatic experience in its pure form or pure essence is really energy. But then we have all of these narratives, these overlays, these mental overlays that tell us what it is, where it is, what it means, whether it's good or bad, how it's going to affect me, and so forth and so on. Now, I want you to see, or I'll at least invite you to see, that the problems that you have are actually primarily exacerbated and maintained at the level of the narrative. That's not to say that there's not an interplay between these two, what I'll call layers, the narrative layer and the somatic layer, because there is an interplay. I've said it's a cycle. Now, there's a vicious cycle, which is the most common cycle that the majority of people are experiencing the majority of the time. And because that's the case, we falsely get locked into this idea that that's some sort of absolute reality, that's the limitation. That's the limitation that we accept as reality. That vicious cycles are reality, and strife and struggle is reality, and the human experience is inherently one of struggle and difficulty and misery. And unfortunately, when we believe that unquestioningly, then it becomes it proves itself You see, because the more that we believe it, the more that it is demonstrated to us, the more real it seems to us, and on and on and on. So it is a larger vicious cycle maintained by the the refusal to acknowledge that vicious cycles in general are just one narrative, not the only one, and certainly not the nicest. So but the narrative is a particular part of this cycle that we can begin to, let's say, disrupt or alter or open up or dissolve, so that we can begin to change that cycle from a vicious cycle into perhaps a virtuous cycle. So the suggestion of relax into health, wealth, and happiness is in fact that virtuous cycle. And we'll hopefully be able to get to that so that it becomes a little clearer. How do you go? How does one begin to make that shift from feeling victimized by vicious cycles, which we all do, to beginning to open to and invite virtuous cycles. So we're going about that bit by bit. So the first thing is, again, to see that we habitually react based on the narrative. So we have a belief system. Most of that is actually unconscious. Not only is most of it unconscious, most of it is not even personal. So this is in my estimation, Eastern philosophy is literally thousands of years ahead of Western philosophy and understanding. With that said, most of us primarily exist in a Western context, and so we don't really have access so much to or we could have access, but we don't in general have awareness of the insights of Eastern philosophy. But these insights that I'm talking about here are not entirely alien to Western thought. Most of us just haven't caught up with that because we're still, even though these insights have been had, they are the masses are very slow to catch up. So, Freud made this enormous contribution, although somewhat limited, but nonetheless an enormous contribution in this regard to the revelation that there is an unconscious, that it's not just the conscious mind that we're dealing with, which was the predominant understanding prior to Freud in the Western world. But he said, look, there's an unconscious, and this unconscious is much bigger than the conscious. You set yourself to something consciously, and then the unconscious overrules it, and you don't know what's going on. Well, Jung took that even further. He said, not only is there an unconscious, but the unconscious is not exclusive to the individual. Yes, there's individual unconscious, but there's also an unconscious that's collective. So that we're all, as long as that remains unconscious, we're all, in a sense, victims of, if we want to see it that way. We're definitely profoundly influenced by this collective unconscious. Well, we don't even know about it. So That sounds like a difficult situation. What are we going to do about that? Well, I'm suggesting that relaxing into health, wealth, and happiness is a really good starting point, and maybe all that's necessary. So the we're noticing that we're usually reacting to this um, mental overlay, to the narrative that gives meaning or suggests meaning to the somatic experience. And just as review, I'm proposing to you, and I'm inviting you to look and see that we can. And this is somewhat artificial, but nonetheless, just for the sake of exploration, it's useful to see that we can kind of categorize our experience in these two ways. One is that there's a mental component, which consists of thoughts, images, memories, and things of that sort. And then there is um, the somatic experience, the felt sense. So, and I've proposed to you, and I'm inviting you to look and verify it in your own experience, which I believe you can do because it's fairly obvious that the two of those must go together for you to have the experience that you would consider a normal experience. If you didn't have those two things going together, it would it wouldn't be a normal experience. If you had no feeling, for example, then that might be what people would call de-realization. So it would be considered this like a psychopathology in general. Of course, everything is viewed as some kind of pathology, but so or it could be like well, okay, so there's that. Or on the other end, what if you had only feeling but no thought? Then there would be no meaning to it. So it's the two going together that produce our conventional sense of reality. Well, I wasn't necessarily going to bring this up, but I'll bring it up now in case we haven't got 18 minutes left if I don't go over, which I usually go a little over. So, but at least 18 minutes. I hope that's enough. I don't want to like take you over the edge and then leave you in despair, not on a Friday. It is a Friday, yeah? Okay, good. So I don't want to leave you over the weekend in some sort of existential crisis. So we'll try to not take it too far, but you know, but um, you can maybe see that, and I've made this point before, that the thought and the feeling is what you understand as reality. So we normally somewhat unthinkingly, that's un with lacking adequate awareness, we go about our days believing that I'm this person and I have this interior experience, subjective experience, and then there's an objective world out there. And we think the subject is interacting with the objective reality out there. So that if I have my glass of water, then I say, this is a glass of water. And I am holding the glass of water and I'm going to drink the water from the glass. See, there's proof that I am in fact interacting with the objective world because look, I just did it. I had the experience of it, and that's proof that it is so. But uh, as I've pointed out previously, I've shown at least one way to deconstruct it. I'm sure there are many other ways to deconstruct it, but just the one that I've pointed out previously is that all I have is fundamentally is the thought and the feeling. We could describe that in other terms. We could say that there's sensory information and the thought, however else you want to understand it. But independent of this sensory information or the feeling and the thought, there is no glass of water. The glass of water as an objective reality doesn't exist as such. All that, at least all that I have access to, is my sense experience and the thought. So just see that for yourself. So, in fact, our entire existence, as far as we know it, consists of these two things. It's a somewhat artificial distinction, but we're just making it for the sake of conversation. So don't take it too seriously, but just use it, hold it lightly as a way of exploring your experience. So you can then see, I hope, that your entire reality, all that you know, the world, the universe, the cosmos, all of it is, at the very least, only known to you through what turns out to be entirely subjective, at least as far as we understand it, experience. So these thoughts and feelings, that they don't exist out there as we commonly conceive of it. They're what we would consider interior experiences, subjective experiences. And you can just start to observe and see that that's all that you have. You don't know directly of anything out there. Well, this leads to all kinds of, existential crises. So I'm not inviting you to go there. And we'll see if we can rescue you from that, because I really don't want to have, you could have a weekend long existential crisis. It's totally unnecessary. Because there's good news in all this. See, we're struggling most of the time because we believe our thoughts, and we believe our thoughts because they're co-arising with the feelings that lend reality to them. And it all happens quickly, and we don't slow down adequately enough and question adequately enough. And so we're stuck in a vicious cycle because of our ignorance and unwillingness to adequately explore, or in another way, to adequately relax. So again, in case you forgot, this is Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness. So your job is to relax. And I wonder if that's become easier or harder as we've gone, 48 minutes in, or however long it's actually been. In some ways, maybe a little bit of both, but notice how it's maybe become a little bit easier, if you can. And then just notice that you actually have a choice. You see, this is really, really important for our exploration here. Because normally we think, I say you have a choice, and you say, well, okay, what is my choice? Because we think, well, I have to do something. So my choice is I'm going to either go this way or I'm going to go that way. I'm going to take this action or I'm going to take that action. We're always kind of artificially limiting ourselves between, I'm going to do A or B. But what I'm actually proposing here is something a little bit subtler than that. I'm saying, notice when you slow down and you observe that there is the feeling and there is a thought, and by thought I'm grouping in with that, not just words and sentences and things of that sort, but also images, memory, and other kinds of meaning that might be understood. So we're just kind of categorizing broadly, saying the somatic and the thought, the feeling and the meaning. So you slow down and you just see, okay, this feeling is really in its essence, it's energy. And this thought is so persistent, so quick, and there's kind of this charge to it that I can sometimes have a hard time seeing that it's just a thought and that it's not actually true. And I'm suggesting to you that this exact thing that I'm talking about, that I'm pointing out to you, that I'm hoping that you can see, and I'm hoping that you can see it in a specific instance or instances in your experience presently as we're exploring this together. So I'm inviting you to actually observe your experience and see how this may be true directly. So just, that's it. You just relax and just see how this could be true. Just see it. And then what I'm suggesting to you is that this exact thing, this such a simple thing actually, but nonetheless, regardless of its simplicity, this thing, this pairing or co-arising of the feeling and the thought and our unconscious approval of it is exactly, and really in some sense, the only thing that's troubling us. In a very real way, it's the only problem there is. So when we think that we've got all these other problems and we think we have to do all these things and so forth and so on, actually what we're doing is we're perpetuating the very same vicious cycle that we're thinking that we're trying to overcome. We're thinking, oh my goodness, I have all these problems. How am I going to fix them? And in doing just that very thing, responding in that way, we are unwittingly reinforcing the very thing that we're struggling with. I hope that's clear. So how can we change this? How can we, what possibility exists for us? Because, if that was it, that just sounds like hell. And that is definitely not my perception or my belief or my experience. And it's important to me to share a message that reveals that there is another possibility, and that it makes it clear what that other possibility is and how to access it and put it into practice in your life. Because from my perspective, the vast majority of people are not only as individuals, but collectively suffering from this very thing. But by and large, there's not a clear understanding nor remedy that's being given publicly to the majority, at least, or even to a significant minority. So my intention is to share this knowledge in a like a grassroots way. I want you to see it. I want you to put it into practice in your life, to see the truth of it, so that you can see that you really can turn the vicious cycles into virtuous cycles. And it's not hard, although it sometimes seems that way. But when it seems that way, just take a look. See if you've been following. Can you see then when it seems hard, what's going on? This is exactly what I've been talking about. When we say, oh, it seems so hard, what we're doing is exactly the same thing that we've been talking about. There's a feeling and there's the thought, oh, it's so hard. And I'm simplifying it. There, the thought, it's so hard, could be those words. It could also be, and usually will also be, supportive so-called memories that are supposed to prove the truth of the claim that it's so hard. Oh, I'll never succeed. Oh, I am a victim of these vicious cycles. Nobody ever, overcomes them. It's just the way of the world. That's how it is. It's going to always be like that. But that thought is only thought to be real because there's the accompanying feeling. The accompanying feeling is just a co-arising phenomenon because of habit, because the two, it's like is a Hebb's rule that neurons that fire together wire together. So there's a that can be kind of generalized, not just to neurons, but to experience, that the experiences that fire together, that co-arise, tend to then co-arise again. So, I mean, that's the definition of a habit. So because they co-arose at some point, and because it was accepted as true, they will tend to co-arise again. So they co-arise, and every time they co-arise, the feeling and the thought, we say, see, proof that it's true, proof that it's real. Because they co-arise. We say, if they didn't co-arise, if it wasn't true, they wouldn't co-arise, we say, but they co-arise. And so we say, we say, they're not even co-arising, it's just a singular truth. This feeling means that thing that I think it means. And the thing that I think it means is definitely true because the feeling proves it. But there you go, circular, vicious cycle. So when we think it's hard, when you think, they say, I want you just for a moment, I want you to think, what is your expectation of what's going to happen after this meeting? You had maybe an expectation prior to the meeting. You must have thought there would be some value. That's why you showed up, whether it was entertainment value or some other kind of value, but you showed up because you thought there would be some value. Now, what's your expectation on what's going to happen after the meeting? And probably it's very likely, it's not guaranteed, of course, but it's very likely that your expectation is that what will follow after the meeting will be very much what preceded the meeting. Meaning that this is like, okay, it's interesting information, but I don't actually believe that it's true, or it's not true for me, or it's not something that I can actually put into practice somehow. It's not accessible to me. It's not going to make a difference in my life. And notice that too is exactly the same phenomenon that I'm pointing out, which is there's a thought and there's a feeling, and they co-arise, and they seem to only because they co-arise and we're not conscious enough to observe it carefully and to introduce the necessary relaxation and intention to result in some kind of change to a virtuous cycle, then the tendency is for it just to continue. So you say, well, I think it will just always be like this. Now, just got a little bit of time left, but let's see if we can really turn it around, because this is everything up to this point is, I think, essential, because we have to have this background understanding to be able to have the courage and faith and perseverance and so forth to actually succeed in turning the vicious cycles into virtuous cycles. But there's obviously a little bit more that's necessary, because all we've done so far is just see what the vicious cycles are, right? I mean, that's all. Take an hour just to see what the vicious cycles are. So let's look now. How can we, hopefully we're clear on the nature of the vicious cycle, but how can we change the vicious cycle? So my proposal to you is that actually it's in the title of the meeting, is to relax into health, wealth, and happiness. Now, of course, I know that I didn't perhaps adequately enough give the instruction on how to relax, so see if I can do a little bit better on that. So you can notice these two things that I've been pointing out: the somatic experience and the thoughts. And one thing is just slow down. So this is very, very important and very practical. So for those who've participated in the Move into Stillness meetings, particularly over the last several months, when really early, a little bit earlier this year, I guess, when I was going into a lot more detail about some of the theory and practice of somatics, I talked about the importance of conscious awareness, that all these cycles, really, the patterns, the habits, they exist in the unconscious. And so in order for the change to occur, we have to bring it into conscious awareness. Because if it stays in the unconscious, then we don't have the ability to produce the change. It's just there. It's just some program that just runs anytime it's triggered. So we have to bring it into conscious awareness. Now, one very, very powerful way that we have that will help us to bring it into conscious awareness is to slow down. So slowing down requires, or I don't know what other words to use, so I'll just use the word forces conscious awareness. Or necessitates conscious awareness. So when we're practicing movements, when we're moving as we might do in the tradition of Somatics or Feldenkrais, then it's very helpful to slow the movement down. Now, in this case, we're not necessarily moving physically, but there is movement. It's just subtle movement. So we want to slow down that subtle movement. So you can just notice how quickly you leap to conclusions, for example. So we say we leap to conclusions. So it's an idiom of English language, that we leap to conclusions. Well, we could just say, oh, well, it doesn't mean there's any actual leaping going on. Or we could accept that actually there is a leap that's going on, but we have to become subtle enough and slow down enough to observe the leap, and then don't make the leap. See, a leap is not a reversible action. So when I say reversible, not that you couldn't leap backward, but you cannot, at every point in that movement, you cannot stop and reverse it, because the leap means that you've left the ground and you're in the air until you come to the ground again. So for the duration of that time in the air, it's not non-reversible. Well, that's not suitable to our purposes for this kind of exploration. In order to make it conscious, we cannot leap. So you want to notice in your, we'll say, mental processes, or in your, really in your process of awareness, you need to slow it down so that it's continuous and reversible, pausable at every moment. So you just start to notice how there's sensation, and then there's a narrative that attempts to give meaning to it. You can actually slow all of that down. Just see that you can do it. And as you slow it down, you can start to notice that that sensation does not actually have inherent in it the meaning that the thought says it does. Now, at this point, it's very likely, depends on the intensity of the feeling, but with most feelings, early on, it's very likely that it still happens fairly quickly, and that there's still some leaping going on, despite your best attempts not to leap, because you'll keep finding yourself believing and struggling not to believe that the thought about it is actually true. You know, like, for example, if you have some kind of physical sensation that you say is uncomfortable, you're going to find it challenging, probably at first, to adequately slow down so that you're not finding yourself having leapt to the conclusion that you know what the sensation is and what it means, because it's so reflexive, just keeps happening, and it says, but it's bad, it's problematic, I can't stand it, I have to get rid of it, I have to change it, it's hurting me, I have to do something, and on and on and on. So that's just part of the process. Don't worry about it. Don't think that you're doing it wrong. It just takes patience and perseverance. You have to have the right knowledge, and then you have to be willing to apply it with how do I say this? You need to be adequately clear on the knowledge, so that, because otherwise it can become distorted, and then you end up not quite doing the right thing. You kind of go off in a weird direction. You call it slowing down, you call it inquiry, but really it's some other thing. So you have to have adequate clarity on the knowledge. You have to have adequate clarity on what is meant by relax. And you have to have the patience and persistence to apply it, because, again, we meet expectation, because we attempt to apply it, and then we say, it's not working. It's not giving me these miracle results that I thought I was going to get. And so then we have a feeling, and the thought that says the feeling means that I'm frustrated, it doesn't work, it's too hard, etc. Won't work for me, it's not true, and so on. So it's a delicate thing, but these are the two, there's an interplay here between these two things. One is you need to continually be really deeply honest and come back to as much clarity as is possible. So don't hold on to anything dogmatically and rigidly, because then you'll say, I must relax. You'll get to that point, and that's a good indicator that you're doing it incorrectly. You're trying too hard, and you're taking it way too seriously in the wrong way. So you need to come back to the clarity of what is actually meant by relax. So that's the one thing, is to turn the vicious cycle into a virtuous cycle. One, we have to have adequate clarity to begin with, which I endeavor to try and guide you to. And I appreciate your patience in and your enthusiasm and interest, because it's not the easiest thing to be able to talk about. But hopefully hopefully I can provide you with enough direction and guidance that you can start to have some sense of what's meant by relax. And yes, it does mean that if you notice these sensations, that and you would maybe understand the sensations. Yes, this is a thought, but you might understand them as kind of gripping or tension or resistance or that kind of thing. That yes, at a certain level, I say address the low-hanging fruit. Whatever you can release consciously, voluntarily, do so by all means. But, and this is a big but, there's always some that you can't. So here is where you have, it can either become another vicious cycle where you say, I can't let it go. I'm a victim again. I thought I was succeeding. I thought I understood. I thought it was working. And then I hit into this brick wall and I'm a victim again. I can't succeed. So we have to come back again to the correct understanding, which is, yes, we let go at the level that we can let go always. And when we can't let go at one level, then we just accept that at that level, I can't let go. So let me see how I can let go at another level. So at this other level that I'm let's call it a deeper level, then we see, okay, I've done my best. I've let go of all the low-hanging fruit. And still there's this sense of some kind of problem. There's still this sense of irritation. There's still this sense of tension. There's still a sense of something that's not right. Still a sense that I'm uncomfortable. So now we have to let go at a deeper level, which means we have to slow down even more, as I was pointing out. So you see, okay, there's the pure sensation, which is really just energy. And then there's this leaping to conclusions that says, it's a bad feeling. It's a problematic feeling. It's a tension feeling. It's a anger feeling. It's a impatience feeling. It's a depression feeling. And we need to see that leap has happened and then relax. Well, you say, well, but that's circular. How do that's not a good enough instruction. How do I relax? I get it. It's just challenging. It's subtle. I wish that I could just spell it out so clearly. Just it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it would be forever so clear. But it's a bit more puzzling than that. So we have to have patience, but I promise you it is worthwhile. It is so very, very worthwhile, because otherwise, you know what it's like. You become so deeply enmeshed in the suffering, you don't know there's any other possibility. You become cynical and hardened. And this is the we all pray for a way out, and I'm telling you, this is the way out. It's, in a sense, it's the way in. The way out is the way in. So you notice, okay, I've leapt to the conclusion. Okay, well then just again, back to the basics. Notice, okay, but here, notice the sensation. See if you can just notice the pure essential sensation, just the energy. And then maybe you notice that you've leapt to conclusions again. So you have to come back and repeat over and over and over. The more you do that, it's like you're slowing it down a little bit each time. And each time you start to see a little bit more clarity, and you start to open to a little bit more relaxation. And here's the last thing I'll say about it for today. And I hope that I really sincerely hope that this is, that you see how positive and life affirming and good this is, so that you can carry this into your weekend and beyond, is that then you can actually begin to entertain the possibility that that particular conclusion is not the truth. And you don't like that one. So that instead of the like, having some kind of existential crisis because you've fallen into a solipsistic trap, which is often the outcome of people realizing or having some glimpse that there is no glass, there is no water, there's only the, I don't know anything outside of my experience. But look at it in a new way, which is that, and this is an essential insight. This is why I say Eastern philosophy is thousands of years ahead of Western philosophy and understanding, because it's an essential insight that says that the difference, or the distinction between the inner and the outer, between the microcosm and the macrocosm, between the individual and the cosmos, is artificial. That there really is oneness. So it's not solipsistic. It's not like no exit. It's that the actuality of reality is not out there, and it's not in here. It's this. It's already directly here and directly experienced, directly known, not interpreted by the mind, but directly known. And so this is a very, as I say, powerful and positive view, because now we can see, oh, I was trapping myself in hell because I was believing these things. Really, that's like, I hope you can see how powerful that is. And that you have the power, when you go through this simple process that I hope I've made clear, that you can, and the more you do it, the quicker it can be, so that you can very quickly arrive at this point where you realize, oh, it's not that. That's not the truth of it. That was just a belief. It was just a habit. It was just a thought that was co-arising with this sensation. And the actuality of this sensation, or this somatic experience, is pure energy. And this pure energy is life itself. It is the movement of consciousness, and that it takes shape based on how it is that, and don't try to puzzle it all out, like, who am I in this whole thing? I'll just say, so that you can see it in your own experience, just observe that it's true. It all takes form and takes shape based on the gentle encouragement that you give it. In other words, what you feed is what grows. So nourish what is in alignment with your true self. And when I say your true self, what do I mean? I mean, just notice you actually do intrinsically know goodness, not as a concept, not as some sort of moral structure, but you just inherently know it because it's intrinsic to you. You know goodness, and you can simply choose that. What I mean by that is, when you can see that you've just been out of habit, believing that this energy has that meaning. And because of that meaning, and we didn't get into this today because it's too much, but I'll just briefly say, this is seeing this core insight is like a mystical insight that seems to be universal. That the 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 um, the sound or the word is the form, and this has been also to some extent recognized now in Western philosophy with their analysis of that language is culture, and so the way our language is what gives shape to our reality. It's how we perceive. Well, you for your own self, you can just see how that's actually true, that you're giving your reality its form and its shape based on what forms you entertain and encourage and feed. Out of habit, unconsciously, we're feeding these vicious cycles, these unwanted forms of aggression, hostility, fear, victimization, and so forth and so on, pain. But when you really slow down, you can start to see, really, this is pure energy, and it can't remain pure energy. It has to move, has to take form, but the form that it takes depends on you. You have that power of choice. And I'm not saying it's necessarily just like you should start, get a book of the perfect affirmations and just start reciting those affirmations. That's a little bit too mindless. What I'm saying is utilize this insight, apply this process where you notice when you're experiencing the difficulties, the problems of your life. Know that what's happening is this thing that I've been pointing out over and over and over, that you're leaping to a conclusion because there's a co-arising feeling and thought, and you're thinking that they're one and the same. And so all of your struggles are because you're fighting against that thing that you don't want, but in your fighting against it, you're energizing it, you're feeding it, so it continues to gain momentum. Slow down, see that these co-arising phenomena are just co-arising because that's the habit, or because of chance, or however you want to understand it, or fate, or whatever. But you are not bound by any of that. And that's the good news. So you can, through this observation, then you can begin, once it's clear enough to you that in fact that's not the truth, that it's just a habit, I've just believed that. When you can see that, doesn't have to be that you've completely dissolved everything. When you can just get to that point where you can see, wow, yeah, I leap to the conclusion, but it's not actually the truth. When that's clear to you, then you begin to actually shift what is true. Meaning, it's not all, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about like you get to decide in the sense of like arbitrarily you'll just decide what's good and true. No, I'm saying intrinsic to you, your true nature has that already built in, and all you have to do is be true to that. So you just notice, I'll try to simplify it. Notice this energy actually, and for those who participated in the Feeling Alchemy program a couple of years ago, you'll hopefully notice that's what I'm talking about here. This pure feeling, this energy, doesn't have any form, but you can give it that form, and you want that form to be yourself. What is what would that be? It would be the bliss. Now you say, oh, come on, as far I can't. I don't know. How, how do I get the bliss? You say. Well, look to yourself, to the silence of yourself, to the subtlety of yourself. And from that, allow for a blossoming of the purity of your heart desire. Not eh, eh, not an object of your desire, but the purity of the heart desire itself. There's just the sense of goodness, of rightness, of love, of peace, of harmony. Just allow that and notice that that's true. That's actually true, not relatively true. It's absolutely true. How do you know it's absolutely true? Because all that you know is that. So trust in that and allow that to begin to co-arise with the feeling. Because actually, here's the secret, is there aren't many feelings. It appears that way, but only because of the thoughts that are arising, actually. Because all the feelings, their essence is this pure energy, and that pure energy is life itself, which you are. And it has a kind of, but life itself has this, it's one, but it has these two kind of dual aspects, the energy and consciousness. So here you notice this pure energy, and then you also as consciousness, not separate from the energy, but you can actually give the shape to it. Not a shape that you imagine, but a shape that is intrinsically within you. The shape of goodness, the shape of peace, the shape of harmony, the shape of love, the shape of your heart desire. Not what you think other people would approve of, not what you think is safe, not what you think is okay, but what is true and pure. Not pure in some puritanical sense, but purely, truly the self. And just notice that you can begin to allow that to co-arise with the energy. The more you do it, same process, it's just now it's not a vicious cycle, it's a virtuous cycle. It requires some intention and persistence on your part, but it begins to occur that as you persist in causing, in a sense, the co-arising of the form of bliss or harmony or love or peace or acceptance, surrender, with that energy, that then they, the neurons that fire together wire together. So they begin to co-arise without any intention. It shifts from conscious to unconscious. The difference is that before it was unconscious and it was a vicious cycle. Now it's unconscious and it's a virtuous cycle. So this is actually what's going on. You can see, like, within the body, for example, think of all of this amazing stuff going on in the body all the time. You're not thinking about it, you're not consciously directing it, but it's happening unconsciously. Now, the majority of that is virtuous because body's still here. Some of it, of course, we could say is vicious. Okay, so I'll wrap it up here, but I just want to point out that this applies not only to your mental and psychological life, but also to your physical life, to your relationships, to your finances, to everything. That's why it's relax into health, wealth, and happiness. Because really, this applies across the board. When you see what I'm pointing to, you'll realize how extensive and far-reaching it really is, and you'll see the profundity and the simplicity of it at the same time. And I hope that you will take it to heart and apply it in your life. And I hope that you will let me know if you have questions or concerns or doubts that come up along the way, and ask for clarification on things. And and then I also hope that you'll start to, in your own way, I'm not asking you to like proselytize, but in your own authentic way, however that is, big ways, little ways, explicit, implicit, just by being true to yourself, that you can share this with others. Because like I say, that's my vision, is that it's a grassroots movement that can help to share this important knowledge with people so that we can collectively discover, uh, we'll just say, a better way. So thank you for joining me as always. Blessings to you all. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.